I guess just following up on that, let's say that, there is a sporting event, a mass scale sporting event taking place in a much better time in 2021. And you guys are there utilizing the technology that you've developed. What would me, for example, as a fan, but also as a member of the be it the city council or the organizing committee, experience using this technology, and how would it enable me to do my work better, but also enable that fan activation on the parallel?
I'll jump in quickly here, and I think there's about 2 or 3 different elements to your question as well. And I think first and foremost, going back to Dan's point and why we started this company too, was all about collaboration and one central source of truth. So being able to design in one spot in 3D as well, and the 4D elements time, so you can see the movement. That's the difference in 3 and 4D, and being able to place all the different objects, either being fixed objects that are already there. There's so much temporary infrastructure that goes into place, and as Ingrid A said, by lots of different stakeholders. So you're actually you're all of a sudden putting all this infrastructure into a space, and then somehow another group has to work out how do you do your crowd management control systems and do all your calculations. But if you don't know what's actually there, you can't calculate the space you've got left to be able to move crowds in sufficient space. So using 3D and 4D modeling and design also enables us to put you into a virtual world. So putting you in VR and experiencing the space as different angles, walking through yourself and really understanding the complexities of the area so it really functions to the best of its ability. And particularly in scenario training, because we can then design different scenarios. So all of your emergency services, all your stakeholders can actually come together and see a true and actual model of what it's going to look like and what's going to happen, because we can add 5 different lots of sensors into the environment. If it's raining or if there's mass crowds moving, whatever you want, we can engage those different scenarios to really put people through their tests and their operational training prior. The fan engagement element, if you yourself, I think by doing that, you will already have a better experience because you're not being stuck in places. The communication's really clear. The staff have been trained to know what their roles are. So your experience has already been great just from those small elements. From an AR perspective, it's your wayfinding. There's lots of opportunities. Everybody uses their phone everywhere now, and I think most people are looking at their phone while they're walking anyway. But it enables them to interact within the space in a lot more energy and excitement. And the sponsors and the organising committee can really use that to get messaging out as well at the same time. And particularly in sponsors, enable to pick up certain tips and tricks along the way to keep engaging those fans and spectators. Because as we know, sometimes it takes a little while to get into venues because of the length of the queues and obviously going through your security checks. So it provides another element to help engage that fan as they move forward and provide them a few extra elements, even with your crowd control and your roving entertainment that's physically there. You can also have a virtual presence as well to add that extra engagement piece, particularly with the younger youth too and their technology use nowadays.
Zishan, just one of your questions was quite pertinent in saying what would a planning organisation see differently, and we strongly are very confident that the time frames would be reduced significantly if 3D models were used in the planning stages, especially in public domain and within venues. So if you can imagine what usually happens is it's quite a linear process. Security does their bit, transport, venues, volunteers, everyone does their planning in a level of isolation, and then it kind of gets mashed together and then brought to the executive, and executive teams and people with money and budgets are asked to make decisions on things that aren't necessarily presented as well as they could be. So we strongly feel that the 3D model, for instance, means that executive people with the budgets, security leaders, transport leaders, city leaders can basically design things like the last mile that we've been talking about together in real time. which in my view anyway would cut off years of planning that currently takes place to do those things, and it can be done remotely. So the planning can be done with, you can be in Canberra, Gold Coast, Brisbane, Lausanne, and we could plan over the next hour what the last mile would be, which would usually take months.
And can I just add, one of the key aspects too is a legacy component. I think by doing this early too, you can really identify legacy pieces that can, sustainable for the city or for like post event. And I think that's where you can see those temporary elements. Do they need to be temporary, or can they actually be permanent to give another something back to the community post games? And that can be found really easily because you can move things around easy without having to understand, build it into the design early and know really what you want without doing last minute sort of things that may not match up later on.